Good afternoon, all. Just give us a sec. We are just going to be putting the YouTube link, live link, onto the chat window in Zoom. And like last time, we'll request you to then go straight to YouTube Live. So we'll have the discussion there itself. So just give us a sec. As soon as we go live on YouTube, we can send you the link. And then we'll request you to log in there. So hopefully we'll start on time. Thank you. Okay, there you go. So we have the link already. I hope everyone can see it in the chat, and request you to log into this link live on YouTube, and then we'll stop the YouTube Zoom admission and meet everyone on YouTube Live. Thanks. So hello everyone, and welcome to our next session. If you don't mind, we'll just give it a few minutes, not more than about 3 minutes more. So we start 5 minutes after the scheduled time. I hope that's okay. And in the meantime, I hope you can hear me. So I hope it's all clear, and we'll just give a few minutes and then we'll start session 2. So thanks for your patience. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And if you can just please confirm on the chat line that you can hear me clearly. I'll pause to just check the line. So Najma, Mandana, great. Thank you. Excellent. So I did get the confirmation. So thanks a lot, and welcome to session 2 of our 6-part sessions, 6-part series. We will cover the full BCM life cycle over these 6 sessions, total of approximately 12 hours. Before we start, my apologies that I was not able to have the session last time. There was actually a family visit planned, which I was not planning to be part of. And then closer to the date, I would say there was emotional pressure brought on me to accompany my family, and I succumbed to that pressure. So apologies that I may have caused some inconvenience to some of you. Sorry about that. But I think if there's one benefit that pandemic has brought, it's a slightly better balance of work life and personal life. Of course, one downside is that the workday never stops. You just kind of go straight from work into bed and probably back out. But that's life. Still, I think it's got many advantages. And what we're doing today is certainly an advantage, because the whole online concept seems to have come a long, long way. So thanks once again for your indulgence and forgiving me to skip the session last time. Even next week, this is at least pre-planned this time. Next week, again, I will not be able to host the session, and we've communicated that, sent you the revised dates. I think the dates we've set now more or less would stand. Hopefully, nothing envisaged at this point in time. But there is a personal engagement next week, so I won't be able to take the session. And after that, I'm back. Okay. So with that, let's go straight into this. I'm actually going to switch off the video just to save on bandwidth. And I'll do a slight recap of what we did, because it's been 2 weeks. So good to slightly refresh what we've done. And then very quickly from that, we'll get into module 2, which is embedding. Okay. Like last time, please keep the questions coming. If the numbers are small, it's easy to handle most of the questions. If the numbers are very large, then we may be slightly challenged. But let's give it our best shot and let's see how it goes. So a bit of background, a similar slide that we had last time, my own background. Again, that's not the objective of today's session. It's not really to tell you about myself. It's more to cover the concept of business continuity. But in terms of BCM, I would say I got into it primarily, probably I would say pre-2000. Y2K was probably the first time when most entities started talking about business continuity. We all realized that there could be an issue if the clocks did not go correctly post the transition to the new millennium. And there was so much hype over that went, in fact, quite well. I don't really know of any horror stories over that period. The worst I've heard is about someone who told me that he went to buy a bottle of wine the next morning as an appreciation to his customer that everything went well. And when he tried to buy that bottle of wine, the merchant's cash register wasn't working due to the Y2K issue. So he had to pay. He didn't get an automated bill. He got a manual bill. I think a small price to pay, no big deal. But Y2K really was the first time for a long time that people said, oh, things could go wrong. Then we had the World Trade, I would say, kind of disaster, catastrophe. That brought through very much the difference between not having good BCM and having good BCM. According to statistics, there were about 951 organizations in the World Trade Center on September 11th. 18 months later, about 550 of those had died. And that's about almost 70%, if I'm not wrong. And the reason they died is because they really didn't have good business continuity. Some of them did not took very long to recover. And what happens if you go back after a 2-3 week outage to your customer and say, "Look, we went through a bad time, but we are back"? I guess your customer would say, "I fully understand. I absolutely sympathize. It's terrible what you went through, but we can't take a chance of this happening again. The next time this happens, we can't wait 2 to 3 weeks, and therefore we have no option but to deal with someone else. I hope you understand." And logically, you have to say yes. I mean, from your point of view, I totally understand. So that's one category that may be resumed after quite some time when things started to get slightly more manageable and predictable and controllable. And the other category would be someone who never resumed at all. Let's say a small specialized private banking customer or a small legal office, 10, 15, 20 people, highly specialized, highly one-to-one relationships. And they lost everything. They lost the people, they lost the database, they lost the background, they lost the knowledge base. Probably even they lost the financial records. So if they had to restart, and none of these people were there anymore to restart, someone else had to do it, they wouldn't even know where to start, what the discussions had been, what money they owed, what's in the bank signatories. And in cases like that, the organization just dies there and then. So I can think of two categories of customers, of organizations who went through this situation. The bottom line was about 18 months later, 550 of those, 900 plus, 931 died. That's it. End of story. Now, that brought through the dangers of not having business continuity. Conversely, there were some organizations like Morgan Stanley, which had about 4,000 people in the World Trade Center. They had a crisis management plan, they had an alternate site, they had a communications plan. Probably no one had a plan for how to handle things if a plane flew into your building and damaged it, and kind of the building caught fire and was totally destroyed. But they had other plans, and those other plans kicked in. And Morgan Stanley survived. Morgan Stanley restarted. Morgan Stanley went from strength to strength operationally. Yes, they had financial issues, but that was nothing to do with this business continuity issue. The fact is their BCM worked. And that was a good example to organizations of what success you can achieve if you do have business continuity, and what the dangers are if you don't. So that's where I'd say cut my BCM teeth. That's where I got deep into BCM myself. I went to Singapore to do the CBCB course by DRI, got certified, was the American BCM head at American Express in the financial center, and then full time have been doing this since 2006. So that's my background. I've written a book also on business continuity, the NCMA standard in the UAE, and currently writing one more, which I expect should be out within the next couple of months. So things have been fun, and I guess that's possibly the advantage of being a consultant, that you get to do what you want and mostly when you want. Moving forward, something about us as an organization. So quite a few awards. We've won the BCI award, regional award 4 times for service provider of the year, and bit photographs of us receiving those awards. Me and my colleague at that point in time, Daman Sood, the BCI team, David Thorpe, the executive director. Due to this, we were incorporated into the BCI Hall of Fame. So the Hall of Fame is for entities which have been awarded the BCI award at least 3 times, and we've been awarded it 4 times. So we were inducted into the BCI Hall of Fame in the UK a couple of years ago. So that was a proud moment. What do we do? A whole bunch of services. I'll actually go fast. I don't want to spend much time on that here, but consulting, assessment, tools, the whole range, audits, certification readiness. We also, many of us are part of the certification panel for other organizations to help them assess other entities and get certified. So moving on. And that's it. Just a small introduction. I think about 5 minutes. And critically, we come to the overview. So I'll just briefly recap the session we did last time, very simply, to make sure that we maintain that thread of continuity. Those of you who attended the session last time would hopefully remember this and pick it up. So it just provides a good bridge for us to build upon and move forward. The BCM life cycle, overall 6 stages, 6 logical stages. And what I like about this is that it's quite easy to embed in your mind and understand. And that's the reason I use this diagram. This diagram comes from the BS 25999. The BS 25999 is the BCM standard which which kind of came into play before the ISO 22301. So the ISO 22301 is in fact based on the BS 25999. It builds upon it, takes it and kind of has also revamped it, because at the same time when they were transitioning from the 25999 to the 22301, at the same time ISO itself was changing its table of contents and the model. So literally the BCM standard ISO 2230 was the first standard in the world, I believe, to follow the new table of contents. Those of you who are familiar with standards would recognize that the typical 10 points, 10 clauses are just about the same in all ISO standards right now, clause 1 to 10, but the contents differ. And therefore, when the 22301 came into being, the 25999 ceased to exist. It's what they call was withdrawn. And since it was withdrawn, the way I see it, anyone has a right to use this diagram, because really it doesn't exist anymore. The standard is withdrawn. But I think in order to embed BCM in your mind, this is a good approach to use. And if you had to explain business continuity to someone else, again, I think this diagram helps you do it quite well. So we've used this diagram as a base. 6 stages, starts with program management, setting up the program for success. I used the example in the last session of a chef who has to prepare a dish, or someone who's organizing a party. You don't just wake up on the morning of that event and assume that everything will be ready. It involves quite a lot of preparation, keeping things ready, thinking it through, planning it, getting approvals, procuring all of those things so that when you need them, they are all available and there are no showstoppers. So that's what we do in BCM program management. A key element there is also the BCM policy. We spoke about it last time. And the policy is a resource that needs to be kept ready, like many others. Once that's done, you would then want to inform people about it. So let's say the party is to be held. If no one knew about it, I think you would struggle, because anytime you went to someone for anything, you'd have to explain. There could be other people who set up conflicting events on the same day because they don't even know that there's this huge party there. So important to make sure that everyone is aware, everyone understands, everyone knows, and everyone appreciates, and everyone fully cooperates. That's what we do in embedding BCM, and everyone does their best. So it's not just one individual pulling; it's literally the entire organization pulling together, almost like a tug of war. If there's just one person pulling, then honestly, there's a good chance you'd lose, and that's what does happen often in business continuity. That is just the BCM head trying to make things happen with no one else giving active support. So in order to get that active support, it's very important that you have embedding of BCM in the organization. That's what we'd spend time on today. The next module, 2 weeks from now, determining, because I will not be there next week, my apologies. So 2 weeks from now, we'll then get into understanding the organization. So now let's say if I use the example of the party, a party has been agreed, the date has been decided, and everyone's been informed and communicated. So we are all on the same page, all ready to pull together, all ready to provide our respective support, whatever is needed from us to make sure that the event goes well. Now it comes to actually the event itself, which in business continuity language would be putting in place the implementation cycle. So planning for the implementation. Just give me a sec, please. Right, sorry about that. So now comes step 3, which we'll do after after today's module. Understanding the organization, what's important. So in the party that we plan to organize, what's important? Let's understand the key aspects that will make the party a success. These things must go well. These things, other things doesn't matter. If they go well, great. If they don't, no big deal. Not many people will be affected. Not many people will bother. Not many people will notice. So if those aspects go well or not, minor, no big deal. Let's handle them later separately, best effort basis. But these three, four, five things critically important. These make or break the party. And if I just use an example, sometimes maybe the food, obviously the agenda. I mean, what's the reason of the party? Is it a reception for a couple? Is it someone visiting town? Is it an anniversary? So let's be clear of the objective of that and make sure that we can do full justice. The venue, the decor, the music, there could be many things that really make or break that party. So those are really important. And that's what we do in business continuity. What will make or break our business continuity management system? The key elements that really, really matter. Let's understand those. And in BCM language, in understanding the organization, we do two things: the business impact analysis. Let's know what are the critical elements that have to be recovered or restarted and in what timeline. As simple as that. If everything in the ecosystem was down, what do I restart, in how much time, and why? That's what we try and do in understanding the organization. And the second element is, let's understand what can cause a disruption. And if we can try and minimize that disruption, mitigate it, make it less, that it really doesn't take us down at all. Maybe we slightly falter in our speed and our progress. We have a slight interruption, a small hiccup, a small road bump, and we get beyond that and we just keep going. We perhaps don't even stop at all. We just minorly slow down and restart. So again, in understanding the organization, we do a risk assessment which says, let's try and make the damage less and perhaps even not have the damage at all. Next stage, 4, determining strategy. We know what we need to do to try and protect ourselves, to try and minimize the impact and decrease the possibility of a disruption. If it did happen, try and make sure that the timeline is less, so we finish it much faster and restart. Less disruption to our stakeholders. So we know what we need to do, but the fact is, how would we do it? That's what we understand in strategy. What location, what people, what infrastructure do we need? What's the expense? How will we manage to restart within those timelines? That's the objective of stage 4, determining BCM strategy. Stage 5, we've agreed our strategy. Management has signed off. We are all clear on what we believe will work. In stage 5, developing and implementing a BCM response, we put it in place. We make it happen. We write it down in a significant amount of detail, either in Word or in pictures, a flow chart, a diagram, whatever works, a checklist, whatever works, any mechanism to make sure that people who read and see that document understand it and with crystal clear clarity and are able to follow it and do it. That's the intention of a plan. So that's what we do in developing and implementing a BCM response. And great, we've got a nice looking document. We believe that everyone understands and can do it, but how do you know till we try? So that's what we do in stage 6. Exercise the plan, test it, follow it a few times, check for understanding, remove any confusion, rework the document if needed, explain better, remove confusing words, add clarity, whatever it takes, so that the next version is much, much more effective. And soon we should get to a stage where we would say, let's everyone understands what is the agreed action plan in the case of a disruption, what they need to do, has done it, has practiced it successfully, maybe the first time not perfectly, but they learned and now they can do it right. And therefore, if a disruption did happen tomorrow, we are confident that everything's in place and things will go really well. So that's the full cycle. And after it's done, the cycle doesn't stop. After it's done, we repeat the cycle periodically, typically at least once a year. And if you have a huge degree of change, rapid change, enormous change, many new people being hired, the organization growing, taking on a lot of new business, people transferring from one department to another or going in and out of the organization. If there's huge rapid change, then nothing's stopping you from reviewing this much more frequently than even once a year. 6 months. There are organizations, for example, the Central Bank of Oman, I believe, has mandated that the BI needs to be done twice a year, not once a year. So if you feel that your degree of change is a lot, you need not wait for someone to tell you. You yourself can take a decision that we will review this process much more frequently. And that's why we have these arrows going round and round. And that's why this is a circle, like a wheel that just goes round and round. And hopefully, each time it goes round, we get better and better. So that is the intention of this whole cycle: continuous improvement, keep getting in better, keep getting better and better. With that, I'm going to pause for a moment, just going to take a look at any questions in the chat line, and we will then progress after that into the stage two, module two, which is embedding business continuity in the organization's culture. So just give me a sec. Okay, so some hello comments. Thank you, everyone. I won't reply individually if you don't mind, but no question comments at this point in time. So we'll just go on. The same 6 stages in a tabular form, by and large the same circle as you saw earlier. And what we covered last time also is how this maps to the ISO 22301 clauses and how it maps also to the BCI GPG. If you look at the table, which is I think coming up shortly, the names of the stages, the first column 2 and 3, the names of the stages are very similar. And the point is that so apologies, I purposely stopped. There was a noise outside and it didn't seem to be any point for me to speak while there's a noise. So I think this table very nicely confirms that the building blocks are substantially the same. And just that someone uses the same building blocks to build a skyscraper, someone uses the building blocks to make the building horizontal, someone may prefer a low rise, 3 floors, not a high rise. Ultimately, they are all houses. Ultimately, they use the same materials by and large. You may just structure it separately depending on your preference. So this maps actually how the what we are presenting today. The 6 stages map both to the ISO 22301 as well as the BCI GPG. In fact, many people have used the FQA course. As you notice, this is courseware developed by FQA UK. And many people, I believe, have used the FQA course to successfully pass the BCI GPG exam, even though that wasn't the original intent, I believe, when FQA built the course. And because of the mock exam that FQA includes, it's a 120 questions mock exam. Per my understanding, a lot of people, more than 50%, have actually passed the BCI GPG with merit, which is more than 85%. So that's an impressive statistic. And I guess it just proves the point that whatever methodology you use, the thought process is substantially the same, and we can all benefit by that, irrespective of which school of thought you probably follow. Principles are fundamentally the same. So coming to stage two, embedding BCM, the prime focus for us to be today. What do we mean by embedding? Embedding means putting something firmly inside. It becomes a part of it. So they're intertwined. Sometimes in English we may use the word joined at the hip. They are together. You don't distinguish one from the other. They're practically interchangeable. And therefore, when we embed BCM, that's really what we're really saying. We are saying BCM is a fundamental part of everything. BCM is really what we do. And everything that we look at, everything that we talk about, business continuity has to be a very key part of it. So that's what we mean by embedding. We could actually call it the ongoing process of continually integrating business continuity into the organization's culture and day-to-day activities. Now, the key issue is continually integrating, and Another noise, and I will periodically do that if you don't mind. So, as I said, the alternative is me speaking and you not hearing me. No point. So, I'll just give it a slight pause. So, what is embedding? Ongoing process of continually integrating business continuity into the organization's culture and really making it part of one. So, what we're really looking for, if things are successfully embedded, is that anything that is done, automatically the question comes up, what if this fails? If this fails, then how would we continue this activity, this process, this service? What's the plan B? If the plan A were to get disrupted, what's the plan B? Let's say you're launching a new product. It's a new variety of a credit card. It's a new auto loan. It's a new telecom service. It's a new product line in your manufacturing organization. It's a new service in your government organization. What happens if something breaks down? What happens if the phones don't work? What happens if technology doesn't work? What happens if the forms are not available? What happens if there are connectivity issues? What happens if the sign off authority is not there? For each and everything, ideally, if you have embedded business continuity, this question pops up automatically, which means when you are creating, launching, getting something ready, the thought process of what happens if it fails is an embedded process in that whole decision. And you're not only coming up with the basic business as usual expected process that you believe will work, you're coming up also with any possibilities, what can cause the disruption, and if it did cause the disruption, how would you then still be able to perform that product service activity. So once this becomes something that everyone thinks of, it's institutionalized. It's not necessarily the BCM head asking that question each and every time. At that time, we could actually say it's embedded. Now, as I mentioned, I and my colleagues have quite a few times been part of the certification process by certification bodies. So when a certification body goes to assess an organization for BCM, ISO 2230 compliance, often they take me or one of my colleagues along as what's called a technical expert. And the technical expert is the one who's much more familiar with the domain, the practicalities, and can hopefully ask some difficult questions just to establish that the organization truly does have a good business continuity management system. So if I were to assess an organization for embedding, I actually would tell the BCM core team or the BCM head, I'd say you're welcome to accompany me. No problem. I mean, you should be comfortable that I'm doing things the right way. But the questions I ask are not for you to answer. I'm going to pause again. There's a noise. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So I'd actually tell the BCM team that feel free to accompany me, but I would want to speak to users directly to understand, to be sure that they understand what they're doing and the why. So it's not a question of mechanical knowledge. It's a question of understanding the method behind the badness, the thought process, which means that even if something didn't go perfectly according to plan, you have a good chance of doing something else smart because you understand the logic and the rationale and the purpose, the objectives, and not just what you were told to do. So I just take the permission, walk up randomly to someone, maybe select a sample set of 10, and just say, do you understand what business continuity is? What's your understanding? What is your role? What are you supposed to do? Why are you supposed to do this? Have you done a BIA, particularly for coordinators? How do you do a BIA? Explain this to me. I'd maybe pick up their business impact analysis, their risk assessment, and say, okay, explain this to me. What's the logic? Give me the thought process. And I'd be looking to make sure that they truly understand what they're doing. Unfortunately, with business continuity, sometimes we joke that BCM is the first thing we want to do tomorrow. Everyone says that it's very important, but then when it comes to practicing or finding time for it, there's always something else that's more important. Now, I think that's changed slightly during the pandemic. I think pandemic brought out the need and made it very clear why BCM is important. So it got a lot of, I'd say, incremental credibility and appreciation from the entire organizations, particularly from management. And people used to question, why are we doing this? Finally got an answer. Why does this make sense? So I think the pandemic did actually change perceptions and help get more buy-in. But still, are we where we want to be, or do we need more? So critical, as I said, the example of everyone pulling the rope in tug of war. If one person just pulls that rope, there's a good chance you may lose. But if the entire organization is supporting that person in pulling the rope, then very good chance that actually you'll succeed in your objective. So in embedding, we try and if I were to check someone on embedding, I would go up to other people, not the core team, and check that they have a good understanding. Now, one of the first organizations that I audited in the top 10 globally in the world to be certified to BCM, a very large multinational organization. What I really liked is when I went up to people and said, what's BCM? Why is it important? What's your role? What do you need to do? I got very convincing answers. And I came away in my heart feeling that these people really know what they're doing. And tomorrow, if the BCM head was not there, if something broke down, I think these people have the understanding to themselves take forward. So we as a team walked out of that audit very comfortable that this company truly does meet the parameters. So that's what you're looking to do in embedding, to make sure that people really understand, they are committed, they know what they're doing, and therefore the knowledge of business continuity is not just restricted to certain key individuals, such as the BCM head or the BCM team, and not just coordinators, even beyond that. So as I said, randomly, if I picked up 10 people and those 10 people gave me a pretty convincing answer each, I would then say I'm quite confident that on this sample set, I believe I'm willing to certify the organization on their understanding and competence of business continuity. Technically, actually, as an auditor, and I speak from different experience, as an auditor, what had been told to me when I joined the audit team is that you should at least have a sample set of 30. That's supposed to be statistically significant, is what I'd been told. So if I had time, I'd do 30. But I think if I just did 10 and just about 10 out of 10 seem to have a very clear understanding, I'd then be quite comfortable in terms of the degree to which BCM is embedded in the organization. But how do we achieve that? Easy to ask for it, easy to accept, to expect it. But like the example of the party or the chef, it won't just happen on its own. You'll have to work pretty hard to make it happen. So, what do we do in embedding? And that's the reason why this is a specific stage of business continuity. Um, so, I divide this into four aspects. Agree the needed competencies and skills. You want people to understand, you want people to be able to do their job, you want people to be committed, you want people to give you their full support for the BCM program. What is required? What do we mean by that support? What defines that support or the competencies and skills? So look at the various roles. And we did this in session one. We looked at the various roles and we looked at internal roles at that stage. I've attached that slide after this one, just to give you a kind of after slide A. When we cover slide A, I'll cover those roles again, just as a refresher. But at a high level, let's agree what are the needed competencies and skills. Once we've done that, let's try and understand how to make sure that people have those competencies. So do some sort of evaluation, some sort of test, and critically get the organization to support us to make that effort. There is a key challenge. I think many of you who are in the BCM field would recognize that when you want to get people trained, their managers say, no, they're too busy, too much work to be done. I can't release the person, etc. And I think I used in the last session an example of an ambulance driver and said someone had to go to hospital. He's had a heart attack, has to go to the ICU, get there fast, get there safe, get there quickly. You're not going to just choose someone who's never driven a car before or an ambulance. And even a car driver, there's no guarantee that he knows how to drive an ambulance well. So someone who you choose someone who is good at doing that and you can rely upon and has the practice, the experience, the comfort, and you know that this person will get your the patient there fast, quick, effectively, and do the best to actually be able to get quick medical treatment and save their life. So, do we need competencies and skills? Yes, we do. Is it easy to get people to support you in doing that? No, it isn't. And therefore, that message has to be brought across to them that if you don't have trained people who can't do it, then you'll have a bad BCM program. So it's an investment. It's not a cost. Um, it's not a luxury. It's critically important. It's without this you'll struggle. So second part, leverage organization culture and communication to get that buy-in. How can you? What's a good way to do it? Number three, okay, now let's say you have the support, you have the buy-in. People say, yes, okay, understood. I realize it's important, and I'll release my people so that you can get them trained and they can do a good job in implementing BCM for us. Then designing and ensuring delivery. So how do you cover them? When do you cover them? What is the coverage and the content that you actually take them through? How do you measure effectiveness? That's part D. So once it's done, how can you actually periodically for each program, literally? And even when you look back at the program itself after a few months have passed, maybe during the annual review, how can you then say this program added value? The time spent, the money spent actually has contributed, and there is much more awareness, there's much more understanding, much more commitment, and therefore our BCM program has a much better chance to succeed. So that's what we try and do in embedding. I'm going to pause for a moment before we get into each of these four in case there are any questions. So if they are, just put them on the chat line. Okay, so no questions for now, so let's keep going. First part, agree the needed competencies and skills. Now, what do we mean by competencies? Ability to do something properly well at the desired standard. Skills is probably what you need to develop. Skills and competencies are, so for example, maybe someone who plays a sport. He's a skilled forward. He's kind of good at shooting into the goal. He gets the target. He hits the ball on target. Um, Normally, it goes inside the goal or close by. Again, I'll pause for a moment. There's a noise. Just give me a sec. So, what are the skills and competencies for a good forward? Someone who you say is I'm going to nominate him as the forward, and that's because he's good at scoring goals. So you'd look for probably someone who's fast, someone who's opportunistic. He knows where the ball is going to be going, and he's there. He's a good striker of the ball. He hits it hard. He hits it on target, and he kind of even places it well. So it doesn't go directly to the goal to the goalkeeper's hands, but he kind of places it to the left or right or higher or lower, and hopefully it gets through. So those are kind of skills and competencies you may need for a forward. For a defender, probably your competencies are different. So again, in business continuity, a key element will be defining the competencies. And again, this would be at two levels: awareness and training. A slight difference between the two. What do we mean by awareness? As the word says, aware. By being aware, that means I know. Okay. I've heard about it. Does it mean that I have a deep knowledge and a really crystal clear, detailed understanding, every small nuance? Not really. Awareness is high level. Awareness is indicative. Awareness is conceptual. You may have heard, you may know, you may see, but none of this means you can do it properly. And let me take an example. Often in my courses, I ask who's learned driving by reading a book or by someone explaining. So let's say, can I teach you how to drive without even sitting in the car? That could be awareness. I explain. I say, look, you have a gear. This is how you change the gear. This is how you release the clutch in a the I'm talking the old manual cars rather than automatic gears. Even in automatic gears, you still need to kind of put your feet on the pedal and stuff like that. So do you think you'd be very successful and be able to easily learn driving if someone just explained sitting in a drawing room without ever getting into the car or showing you the car? Most probably not. So you'd say, okay, I understand what is involved in driving. You've explained to me. Okay, I know, I've heard you. But will it mean that you'll be able to drive? Not, probably not. For that, you need training. It's more detailed, it's more hands on. Best done by sitting in the car, best done by demonstrating. I show you what I'm doing, you're watching. We then switch roles. You start doing it, I'm watching, kind of you keep it slow, very safe. Perhaps we do it even in a very open area where there's no danger, even if you do something wrong. There's a good chance that no damage will be done because you're alone in that area. You can't do too much damage. So we maybe start small, we start safe. You start to get slightly familiar with what has to be done. In due course, you pick up confidence. And then at some stage, maybe we go start going to more crowded areas and we maybe start going faster. And gradually, you're getting better and better. And one fine day, your instructor or I or whoever it is would say, okay, now I think you're fine. I mean, you're able to drive now independently. I don't think you need me anymore. And maybe let's go for your driving test. So you go for your driving test, you get the license, and then most probably you don't need me anymore. So that's training, more detailed, hands-on. And when training is finished, by and large, it's expected that you would have the ability to do things yourself at the desired standard. And of course, as you practice, you get better and better. So, what competencies are expected from those who've been provided awareness and understanding and basic understanding, something not very difficult to do. So, let me give an example of awareness. What do people need to be aware of in the organization? Mostly, this would be, as I said, people who don't need to play a very active or a major role. So, it's kind of peripheral knowledge. It's a knowledge that may be needed um, occasionally. It's knowledge that does not require huge practice and competencies. Knowing is adequate, or seeing is adequate, or understanding is adequate. And periodically, if you practice it, then that's good enough, meets the objective. An example of that could be evacuation. How's it done often? It's explained, and then you would probably perform it. The fire alarm would go out, go on, would ring, and you'd all kind of trail out through the emergency exit, aggregate in the assembly area, probably do some communication or a head count or something like that. And often after that, there's a small briefing about maybe points because you have everyone together at that in that area. So good opportunity to pass on some key messages. And that's it. Probably in about half an hour or an hour, the whole exercise is over. So that's an example of awareness. Awareness could also be maybe basics of uh, just risk. So if for example, in if there's a fire, don't get in an elevator. That's awareness. I mean, you perhaps don't need very detailed and hands-on training for that, but it's generally known that you shouldn't get into elevator when there's a fire. When you go down the stairs in an evacuation or a crisis situation, don't push, don't stampede, go orderly, go without panic. These could be things about awareness. So awareness is high level, kind of more instructional, doesn't need very detailed hands-on experience and understanding. But yes, periodically, if you reinforce that learning, that's good. Training, on the contrary, is much more detailed and hands-on. At the end of my training, I should be able to drive a car. At the end of the training, this person, this chef should be able to cook a meal for so many people in so much time, and that meal should be pretty high quality. That's when he gets certified, or he can then say, yes, I officially have finished the course. In our cases, we conduct a lot of training on business continuity, and evidence of that will be passing the exam. So how do we know that you've got the knowledge? Let's do the exam. And often during the course, there are also hands-on exercises. So you're being assessed on the exercises, on your knowledge of how to do a BIA, how to do a risk assessment, what the ingredients of a policy are, how to talk through strategy and finalize that, how to create a plan, how to come up with an exercise and testing program. So all of these would be examples of training, detailed, hands-on, and a very desired, a very clear expectation at the end of that whole process of what you are supposed to have achieved and be able to do once the training is over. So that's awareness competencies. And I give you some examples. And training competencies is, as I said, being able to perform that reasonably independently and perform that to the desired standard, being able to give a quality output. We then say that you have developed those competencies as a result of training. Okay. Just pause for a moment. Okay, so again, an invitation. I mean, feel free to ask me any questions if you like. So far, numbers are manageable, so I can probably take some, but at least I'll go on and complete this aspect for now. Who all must be provided with BCM training and awareness? We had various roles, and I can perhaps show you those roles for a moment. Okay. And these are roles that we looked at in the previous session. All of these would need either some training or awareness. Top management. You would have often a steering committee, which is the unit heads, the department heads, who together are probably endorsing the program, taking decisions, evaluating it, giving you the comments, kind of trying to make sure that the BCM program is aligned to the organization expectations. So that's the steering committee, usually comprised of top management, so of the seniors in the organization. Usually, you'd have a head of that steering committee, and often we call that person the BCM sponsor. And the BCM sponsor is the one who's responsible for the successful embedding and creation of the BCM program. So the BCM program must work, and that's usually the job of the BCM sponsor. Do they need training and awareness? Simple answer is yes. How many of them have done BCM before? How many of them know BCM well? How many of them understand the difference between business continuity and crisis management, and information security and cyber security and risk management and organizational resilience? The answer is many may not have that knowledge. They may not have that understanding. How many of them know their role? How many of them know how to perform that role? How many of them have skills that allow them to do that? How many of them know the questions to ask? How many of them are able to make sure that their coordinators in their units do a good BI, do a good risk assessment, what to look at? The answer is in many cases they wouldn't. And therefore they need training and awareness. Business continuity head, business continuity team, what training and awareness do they need? Detailed training and awareness. I mean, they are the subject matter experts in the organization. If the BCM head or the business continuity team doesn't know BCM, then who else in the organization does? I mean, who else should someone ask? Who would keep track of that things are moving well and be able to manage and control it and ensure that you have a top quality program? So this is the team that really has to be deep down, deep dive competencies, full understanding. They are the subject matter experts. Okay. What they don't know, no one else will. So they need detailed training and understanding. Department representatives, what training and awareness do they need? I would see the department representatives as the BCM lead in their units. They're kind of mini BCM heads. In fact, they're also potential BCM heads because if they understand BCM reasonably well for their areas of operation, which is their department typically, and if you need additions to the BCM team, if you're looking to bolster the BCM team itself, maybe a BCM head is moving to a different role. Maybe you need more coordinators. You've got some empty positions and you need to resource those. The business continuity coordinator would be a perfect person to consider because they know what to do in terms of BCM for their unit. They then now do this on a larger scale as part of the BCM team. So, as a coordinator, what training and understanding and awareness do they need? Primarily their functions, which is the BI, risk assessment, strategies, plans, testing, and exercising, and also audit. Some of them may be involved in the audit process. Some of them may audit other departments. All of them certainly would be audited. So there'd be the auditees periodically. So this is the kind of competencies that they would really need. Does a BCM department coordinator need to know how to create a BCM policy? Most probably not. That's what the central team does. Does the BCM department coordinator need to put together a BCM program? Most probably not. That's again the role of the central team, the category two in this slide. So they don't need to understand how to put the program together, but they do need to know how to follow the program in their units. So that's the training and understanding that they need. Typically, when we conduct our sessions, we suggest that the coordinators go through focus training, slightly lesser duration than the core team itself, and we suggest that periodically, once the program is done, periodically the BCM coordinators regroup as an in-house batch and are taken through the full BCM program. So at least it starts making sense in their mind, and they then come together with much more clarity as to what they're doing, why they're doing it, what the rationale is. And when you understand how to do something well, often you also come up with smart questions. So at least in our experience, once when you have in-house kind of programs for coordinators, typically 2 to 3 days duration, a lot of smart questions come out of those coordinators, from those coordinators, now that they understand the program, and a lot of improvements come out of that. So such sessions pay for themselves. So that would be the suggestion about the training and awareness that coordinators and representatives need. Incident response team, these are the people who are actually following the plans. So they perform those activities in real life when something goes wrong, and even as part of testing and exercising. It's category four who would typically be involved in the exercising and testing of the plans. So their understanding is what they normally do. What they normally do is the plan A. They would do those things differently in a BCM situation, because what is a BCM situation? A BCM situation is something where you're missing a key resource category. IT is down, or the building's not available, or you don't have utilities, or a key service provider has let you down, or your people are not available who do those activities normally. So you're actually trying to do that differently. So that's what the incident response people are involved in. Then you would have specialized roles. Does IT disaster recovery need awareness and training? Yes. I mean, do they understand BCM? Do they understand the BCM methodology? Do they understand the language of the BCM coordinators? And in my experience, there's often a gap, a chasm between the IT folks and disaster recovery. The IT disaster recovery folks and the BCM folks. I think that chasm is decreasing. In many organizations, I find them now more aligned. But traditionally, the IT folks would just do their own thing, not talk to the business. And the business would say, we don't know what IT does. They don't share their information. So things have got much better. But should IT and BCM be on the same page? I believe yes. And therefore, the same training and awareness that IT gets, that BCM gets, I would say the ITDR folks also need, except they need it in IT language. So in BCM, you would talk resources and timelines and availability. And in IT language, you would talk the same concepts, but it may be in terms of storage and bandwidth and recovery time and RPO, etc., data, etc. So the language would change. The concepts are very much the same. So you're both looking at the same picture, but maybe with in your own language. Audit. Does audit need to learn how to audit BCM? Yes, certainly. It's a different domain. Do they understand the nitty gritties of business continuity yet? Probably not. So sometimes I use the example. Someone says, okay, go see whether this pilot flies well. I mean, what do I know about flying a plane? I've never done it before. So if I did need to um, inspect and provide an opinion on how capable this pilot is, I think I'd have to understand the flying process. Only then can I add value. So similarly, audit should understand BCM. So that's the training and awareness that they probably need. Communications, crisis communications. Sometimes I ask the question, do you need to manage the incident or do you need to manage the stakeholders of the incident? And I think that's what we do through communications. We manage the stakeholders or the interested parties. We manage their emotions, their concerns. We try and bring things down to a manageable level where they are not worried, and that gives us breathing space to put in place our solutions. Whereas if we did not keep them in the loop, then they'd get quite upset. And even if we did a great job in our continuity efforts, still we may get beaten up because we left our interested parties out of the loop. We didn't keep them informed, and sort of we ignored them. And who likes to be ignored? So crisis communications would need training and awareness as to what BCM is, what the objectives are, and what is the kind of communication to put out. So again, there is potential for training and awareness for communications, maybe some simulations, maybe practice. You typically would have a crisis communications plan. So like you practice and test and exercise your BCM plan or your ITDR plan, similarly, you should practice your crisis communications plan. All other personnel, even though others in the organization, do they need training awareness? Yes, they do. I use the example of awareness. I use the example that these guys are the eyes and ears of the organization. If something is wrong, if something is potentially wrong, if something could go wrong, do they have value and responsibility to bring that up to the right person? At least give that person a heads up and let the right person then move with that issue and take a call. Yes. So they have a huge role to play in terms of awareness specifically. And I have on kind of the next slide, um, small more question about. I'm actually going to go back. Yeah. So my question, other than this, is should training and awareness be ensured only for internal interested parties? Because that's the list we saw. All these entities are internal, or should it also be for external parties? And my simple answer is it should also be for external parties. If you need the support of a service provider, if you need the goodwill of a regulator, if you need the support and assistance of a partner, if you need all of those people to contribute and help you be effective in your BCM efforts, should you also consider their training and awareness requirements? And I believe the answer is yes. So it could be short, it may not be very detailed, but at least it's good for them to understand your BCM program, your expectations, and what you need from them. So at least they go into this with a high level understanding and they can then build on that. So in all these roles and responsibilities, consider not only your internal staff, but even consider your needs from others related. And you then have a much better chance that again, everyone is pulling that rope in tug of war, not just people within the organization, but also people outside the organization who are supporting your BCM efforts. Okay. With that, we've just about been at this for an hour. This could be an opportune time to take a short break. Let's give it about 10 minutes. Bio break, smoke break, any other break, stretch break, as the case may be. We can give it any name. And we'll resume in about 12 minutes from now. Feel free to again post any questions or queries. And when we resume in about 12 minutes from now, we can take any questions and then we'll get into the next modules, the other three, B, C, and D. And if you have any feedback or comments, let me know on the Zoom channel, let me know on the YouTube. And my objective is that you get value out of the 2 hours that you're spending here today. So thanks very much. We'll now take a short break. See you back in about 12 minutes, 11 minutes from now. And we may, while you're away, play a promo video. Perfectly all right if no one watches it. If you're on your break, no issues at all. But often when I get onto YouTube, there are other people playing their promo videos. So at least we may use this opportunity for us to do that. So thanks very much and see you all back in about 11 minutes from now. Thank you. So slides coming up now. So we finished with this part. Agree the needed competencies and skills. And going to the next one. So let's assume we've agreed the needed competencies and skills. We've looked at the various roles that we defined earlier in the stage one, program management. We looked at what skills and competencies they need. Now the question is, how can that be done? So I guess alongside one key point for you to appreciate is BCM is actually almost like a chain where each stage leads to the other stage, and you are using actively outputs from the previous stage. So if you do find, which often is the case, that something you've created is not getting used, then the question is why you're creating it. That sounds like a wasted effort. So please be absolutely clear that if there's something that you've created, then you must use it. And if you're not getting to use it, then really stop creating it, because sounds as if it's really leading nowhere, which is pointless. So coming back to embedding, a key document or a key thought process that we're actually taking forward is the roles and responsibilities and authorities that you defined in stage one. Within all of those, we specified what are the competencies and skills that we really need. Now, how do we get things to happen? How do we get people to embrace BCM, to take BCM seriously? As I joked earlier, BCM is the first thing we want to do tomorrow. BCM is important. Has anyone told you BCM is not important? Probably never. Anytime you make that statement, the answer you normally, of course, yes, yes, very important. And then you tell the CEO, I need your time tomorrow or day after. And he says, no, no, I'm too busy this week. And someone's coming in and next week this. And of course, but we'll meet. And you know that tomorrow never comes. So how do you get people to appreciate that BCM is truly important? The pandemic certainly, I think, helped. So if I were you, I would make sure that I'm kind of taking forward this realization, probably creating some sort of document of pandemic learning, circulating it, talking about it, doing some noise on a regular basis every few months, worst case, even once a year, and making sure that people remember the need and contribution of business continuity. Uh, so, importantly, I think in business continuity methodology, what we really believe is that you'll be best off introducing a new concept or getting people to embrace a new concept if you embed it with the way the organization works. So if I use an example, you're trying to cross a river, the current is very strong. If you try to go against the current, there's a good chance you may never reach the other shore at all. The current is just too strong. Okay, noise coming up. Just give me a sec, please. Okay, sorry about. So if the current is too strong, the current is say going right to left, and you're trying to go left to right, you're going against the current, then you probably need double the amount of effort to achieve the same objective. Whereas if you go with the flow, honestly, you need not maybe even put much effort at all, because the flow itself is so strong that it'll carry you along. So that's the relevance of organization culture. Organization culture is defined as the way we do things in our organization. This is what works. This is what is accepted. This is what people are okay to. If things happen in this manner, they take it seriously, they fall in line, and things happen. If it's not done in this manner, then they rebel. They give someone a hard time. They refuse to cooperate. And then you'll probably have a failed initiative. So, if you wanted to embed business continuity in your organization, it may make sense to do it in line with your organization culture. The way things happen. So, for example, some cultures could be top down, very leadership driven. The boss wants this, everyone falls in line. Boom, that's it. No dissent. And there are some. So I'm not qualified. I'm not an expert in Japan, but that's what I've been told. It's very hierarchical. If this is what the boss wants, then we'll all do it because we respect the boss and his opinion, and we owe it to him. So everyone will fall in line. There are some cultures which are very democratic. We will do this if everyone agrees. If there is strong dissent, then we will not push it through against your will. Uh, it's important to understand culture and then try to see within this culture how do I push through my BCM initiative, the BCM knowledge, understanding, appreciation, and try and get commitment of everyone in the organization that when that tug of war game is to be played, then everyone kind of takes the rope and puts their full weight behind it. And if so, there's a very good chance that we'll succeed because all of us are pulling together. How do you influence culture? Normally, we say that culture is a function of assumptions, beliefs, values, and behavior. You behave in a certain manner, even if you don't want to implement business continuity, you don't believe in business continuity. And I think I said the magic word. You don't agree to be part of the business continuity. You say this is a waste of time. Why? Because you have a belief in your mind that this doesn't add value. So if I needed to change your behavior and the way whether you adopt BCM or not, I need to change your mindset. I need to challenge your beliefs. I need to show you that perhaps your beliefs are not correct. There's another point of view that maybe you hadn't considered. And if your mind then starts to say, yes, this person's right. I'm not sure I looked at things this way. He has a point, and that point makes sense. And therefore, when they're saying help support our business Karti initiative and give it your full support and be part of it and propagate it to your team and encourage them to do it, he's talking sense. Now, I think, as I said, the pandemic helped a lot show how business Conti adds value. So the people who didn't give it their full support, I hope, are much less right now. In my view, the pandemic also saw management teams coming together. In the past, pre-pandemic, there's been a lot of, I would say, us and them, these guys, that guys, the BCM team, others. I get the feeling that during the pandemic, most teams really came together very well, saying this is not a BCM problem. This is an organizational problem. We can't expect BCM to solve this for us. We all need to be involved. And I think that really brought teams together and made it clear that BCM is embedded across the full organization. We all gave it our full support, and most organizations, I think, did quite a decent job. Some were faster because they had BCM readiness. Some took more time and struggled because they didn't. And many of those who struggled and did not have good BCM are now implementing it. So, us particularly as an organization, we've did about 7 to 8 consulting assignments during the pandemic. Most of them fully online, without even meeting the customer. Went very well, and we have at least our business has grown by 30% post pandemic because people now realize that they needed to have better continuity and resilience in place. They didn't, and now is the time to put it in place. Uh, so if you can start giving people good reasons to implement BCM and believe in it, there's a good chance they'll give it their full support. Okay. Uh, I look at it, and we talked about this in briefly in kind of the policy part, that why the policy typically should include a section on why does my organization need BCM. BCM is important for my organization because at the worst case, it's just reputation, trust, faith, pride. We do a good job. We don't let people down. We do what we say. You can rely on us. We are professional. I asked once the director of a government organization in the UAE, why are you implementing BCM? He said it's a matter of pride. It's a matter of commitment. End of day, I get together with my peers, my friends, my colleagues. We sit in the majlis, kind of senior people are there. I don't want people to pass some loose comment. Oh, these guys, they never work. Oh, it's all broken down. Whenever you call them, they say, no, systems are not working. Can we call you back? I don't want that reputation. I want the reputation that my organization works. What we say we'll do. It's commitment, it's a promise. And therefore, we want BCM. So, from my point of view, everyone has a hot button of what they really care about. And almost always, BCM can be related to that hot button. If I take maybe an organizational tagline, the slogan, I remember used to be probably the same. The slogan for Toyota, I believe, used to be moving forward. Now, can Toyota move forward without business continuity? No way. If constantly things are breaking down, you're not moving forward. You're stuck where you are, or maybe you're even moving backwards. Nokia, I believe, had a slogan connecting people. And then, of course, Nokia went into Nokia Networks and the company organization metamorphized. But they're still connecting people. And if Nokia Networks doesn't do its job, then those connections will break. So, for all entities, I believe we have a good chance to relate what the organization stands for with business continuity. And once that connection can be established, be it reputation, faith, commitment, promise, financial, non financial, Even employee growth. If my company has business continuity, then we are probably doing well. We are gaining market share. People trust us. Things are good. I can look forward to a bigger job. I can look forward to a salary, a raise, a promotion. I get a nice bonus at the end of the year. All these are good reasons to help ensure that the organization does well and meets its promises, which means we have good business continuity. So important that if we can make that connection, I think we will get the support. Um, Knowledge of organization culture. If we are democratic, we are top down, we are whatever it is. Let's use that mechanism. So if it means that you have to get the CEO to send out a message, then draft a message for the CEO and ask him to send it out. If you mean that believe that it needs a town hall for people to support BCM and get the message across, then do a town hall. Issue a policy. Get people to read the policy, quiz them on the policy. Request the CEO that in each and every message he should mention business continuity. So figure out what works and then make it happen. As simple as that. No rocket science, but this is as applicable to business continuity as anything else, perhaps even more for business continuity. But as I said, in the pandemic, I think a lot of realization would have come. So I hope that your job is now easier, more than it was earlier. Organization culture. Okay, supposing still you're not succeeding and you really need to change organization culture, it needs to be a mandate. You're a democratic organization, it needs a mandate. That's it. We shall do this. End of story. I'm the boss. If the CEO is willing to do that, then change the organization culture. And how can you do that? Typically from the top. As a BCM head, as a BCM lead, you probably can't change the tone. The tone has to come from the top. But if you can convince the senior management to repeat those points again and again, to drill them constantly, I find it, I would liken it something like growing flowers in the desert. On the face of it, the desert is an inhospitable environment. You don't have a chance. But guess what? If you plant a seed and you keep watering it regularly, there's a good chance that eventually that seed will open up and the plant will grow. And kind of one day, if all goes well, it'll be a big tree that provides you shade and fruit and perhaps even water from the sap inside. If you need to change organization culture, convince the top, get them to put out the message, and then perhaps keep referring to that message. So the boss can say it once, but you can quote him repeatedly and get that message across. And when people realize in their mind that BCM is a good thing to do, you'll probably get the full support. So critically, if you want to embed BCM, um, understand the culture, understand the way things work, understand the mindset, and then channelize the organization to help you. Sorry, there was a noise, so I purposely gave it a break. So let's say you know the skills and competencies that are desired. You now have in your mind a plan as to what you need to do to get the buy-in. You now need to execute, and you need to check that you have good execution. So C, design and ensure delivery. And D, then check the validity and the effectiveness of that delivery, that it's truly meeting the objectives. So what is involved in designing a campaign? And a critical element that is often talked about is a training need analysis. As the name says, training need analysis, analysis of training needs. What is the training required? Which is actually a gap between the desired skills that we talked about in part A. These are the skills and competencies needed for a football forward, for a defender, for a BCM champion, BCM coordinator, BCM lead, sponsor, steering committee, management team, ITDR, any of those. We define those competencies in part A. Now, where are they on those competencies currently? So, how would you look at what are the elements of someone being competent? Either the person has learned it, so I've studied it. So, education is if I've studied business continuity, there's a good idea that I know something about it. So, what's my educational degree? Maybe sometimes certifications, which means passing an exam and successfully. So I can show you that I didn't just study it, I learned it and I passed the exam. So I know the content that was asked me. That is evidence of me knowing something. Experience, I've never studied BCM, but I worked in it. I've been part of a BCM team. I've been a coordinator. I've been performing, doing a BI and a risk assessment and creating plans and responsible for testing and exercising in my unit. So it's probably some competency there. And then really formal training. So, okay, you have this or you don't have this, but there's a gap and this is what we need to do. So that's often something that HR teams do, training need analysis. It's something that you may want to leverage on and work with HR. So initially you define the skills and competencies, then you look at the relevant population to see the gap within vis-a-vis the desired skills needed. If so, then there is some training to be done or awareness to be done. And then you would at some stage design a campaign as to how to provide that training and awareness. Would that be a one-off campaign or ongoing? Typically in business continuity, most things are recommended to be redone annually. So there's an annual review, and particularly business continuity embedding. In fact, earlier when I was talking about this session, I mentioned that some entities do it even once in 6 months, not just once in a year. To me, it's a function of perhaps, as Alice in Wonderland said, I think there's a statement there. You need to know where you're going. So, what's your start point? What's your end point? What's been the experience so far? If you're really struggling and you're not finding too much support, then perhaps you need to do the campaigns more frequently. And if you feel that by and large there's a pretty high degree of embedding and people embrace the concept, then perhaps you can be slightly more relaxed. But importantly, it's really not a one off campaign, typically at least annual, and if warranted, even more frequently than that. Content of the campaign, you're trying to provide the skills needed. So, how do you provide those skills needed? Could be talking, could be practicing, could be workshop, could be hands on, could be showing them your current documents, could be showing them others' documents, anything that helps get that into their mind so that they understand what is required and they understand how to do it. So normally it reduces to a training course. We in core recommend about a 3-day training course for champions, 2 to 3 days. If there's been a lot of transition, then ideally 3 days. If it's an experienced team, been doing this for a long time, then maybe 2 days may be adequate. But you'll be surprised that even teams that have been doing it for a long time still like formal training because it helps bring it all together. Otherwise, we are just following instructions, maybe not understanding. But when you do a campaign like this, it kind of makes sense in my mind. And then I can actually start to end figure out how things flow together. And as I said earlier, be able to come up even with smart uh, thoughts, decisions, and improvements. How do you deliver it? Currently, a lot of delivery has been online, could be classroom based, could be like computer based learning, typically for awareness, actually. So, if it's awareness, it can be mostly one way communication. An e learning course, just listen to a recording. But if you're looking at training itself, improving competencies, then typically it's better two-way with a question and answer, hands-on exercises, maybe a case study, and working your way through that. And if possible, even have the case study on your own documents. So it's your own organization, your own BI, your own risk assessment, strategies, plans, testing, exercising, audits, management review. Even I would say an advanced way of doing it is by doing it with your BI, your RA, your audit, etc. Again, noise coming up. Just give me a sec. Sorry about that. Um, different ways of providing that training and awareness. As I said, awareness could be slightly one way and virtual, just listening, hearing, seeing. Training should be slightly more two way, asking, validating, and being 100% sure. Timing. So, what we are really doing in this part C is designing how to deliver, even the length of the training, the duration. As I said, if it was coordinators, I would recommend 2 to 3 days. If it's experts, I would recommend at least 5 days, and perhaps even a refresher in a different form to kind of validate and really ensure that everything sinks in. If it's a senior management, we would recommend maybe a simulation of about, say, 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours roughly. If it's an awareness session, even a couple of hours could be adequate for all staff, or for third party providers. So the duration becomes pretty important, and the timing. When do you deliver that activity? So if it was, for example, a BI refresher or a risk assessment refresher, I'd recommend do it before you do your annual review. So the BIs need to be reviewed in April. Let's do the refresher in March. Let's do a 2 to 3 day session in March, just before we have to perform that activity. So it's fresh, and we can use that knowledge and consolidate on that knowledge. Um, Exercise and testing. Maybe you're a manufacturing plant. You periodically have a shutdown where you clean out the infrastructure and kind of remove the pollutants, and then by the time you restart, it's kind of like new. So activity is low. Operations are kind of suspended periodically for a certain period of time while you clean out everything and then you restart. Great time. It's kind of little bit of a lean period. It's a good time to do training and awareness. So I think choose those timelines correctly. Try and make sure that there are times when most people are available. Give them adequate notice, and you then have probably a good chance that you will be able to cover the right content that is designed and tailored to the audience, given their current maturity start point, given their desired maturity the end point, and if it's a time period that's reasonable. So you're not overstaying your welcome. It's just right, not too long, not too short. Something like Goldilocks and the Bears, not too hot, not too cold, just right. If you do that, I think there's a good chance that you'll have people then supporting you, attending those sessions and getting value out of them. Okay. So let's say we've designed the campaign, we've delivered the campaign, be it face to face, be it online, be it hands on, be it virtual, be it electronic based, whatever is the mechanism, showing, doing, understanding whatever is needed. So let's say you've designed that and you delivered that, and then the next step is last step, at least for this stage, is ensuring that the competencies are in place. So how would you check it? If you're doing a training course, you could have an exam. So like in school and college, we cover something and we do an exam. So that exam checks our understanding. Uh, there would be other ways. Even operationally, you could know how things are. You could see how things are. When you talk to someone, they understand more, they understand better, they are on the same page, the confusion is less. So there's greater understanding. There's more active involvement and support. They are more excited about this. They contribute more to this. You're seeing more traction. You're seeing more talk about it. When plans are made, then they also talk about what if this goes wrong. So there's discussion even about the BCM plan. Your documents are better, more comprehensive, more detailed, correctly covering the necessary aspects. So the quality has gone up. Lesser incidents. You're more prepared. You've done a good risk assessment. You put in place the controls. You can't probably very much prevent incidents from happening in the external world, but perhaps you can prevent the impact of those incidents. So the incident gets noticed much earlier. The incident gets handled much earlier, handled more effectively. The downtime is less, the damage is less. Those are again indications that things have improved. So more effective response and recovery. And here I make a distinction, which I'll cover in the next sessions also, between response and recovery. I'd say response is responding to the incident, like, for example, a fire. The handling the fire is response, bringing down the fire, extinguishing the fire, and kind of managing the impact of the fire itself. So the damage to the building, the damage, maybe shock and trauma to people. So finishing the incident itself is, I would say, incident response. And just by finishing the incident itself doesn't mean you can restart your activities. Restart is a separate process where maybe you may need a different location, or you need to clean up this location, or you need to mobilize fresh people, or mobilize the current people, get them back into the proper mindset that we're restarting. So the distinction I make here: response is managing the incident and its impact, and recovery is restarting the product, services, and the delivery. And again, another method So if you have had effective BCM efforts, hopefully you have better results, better satisfaction. Your interested parties are probably more comfortable, more supportive. And I, as a customer, have had my um, people who I deal with. So I'm their customer. My insurance company, my stockbroker, my banker, they write to me periodically and say, we have business continuity in place. We are a good organization. We are forward looking. We are prepared. We are progressive. And you can rely on us. If things go wrong, you will not be impacted. You won't suffer. And that gives me comfort. So that actually builds my commitment towards them. And if it came to taking a decision of staying with that organization or moving, taking my business somewhere else, this is another good reason for me to stay on. So sometimes in English we use the word sticky, and sticky would say kind of I have a tendency to continue. So I'd say business continuity makes things sticky. That it's another good reason for you to stay on, because you trust this organization, you're more confident, and you feel you're better off with them rather than someone else. So with that, we've covered pretty much four aspects of embedding. I'm going to check the chat line in case there are any questions, and then we'll summarize and kind of go towards the end of this session. If there are questions even from the previous session, happy to take that, or questions not related to any of these sessions. If it's related to this topic in general, please go ahead. No issues at all. So just give me a sec while I check the chat line. Okay, nothing so far. Um, so we are kind of within time, about 15 minutes to go and a few minutes more to recap. So again, kind of embedding business continuity. The four key elements: agree competencies and skills. Yeah, agree competencies and skills. Use culture and communication to get the right buy-in. Design delivery. How will we make sure that we get the message across? What's the best way to do that? And then once it's done, let's make sure that somehow we can ensure that the right things have happened. Okay, sorry, I muted by mistake, so I'm back. Um, so let's say four elements of embedding BCM. What is to be done? How do we embed BCM in our organization? What's the embedding that we're looking for? Who has to be part of those embedding kind of processes, decisions? So how do we make sure that things work and the right things are in place? How do we deliver that? How do we ensure that they've got the right understanding? And how do we make sure that this keeps improving? So, like growing a plant in the desert, drip irrigation periodically, keep getting that thought process steadily again and again till one fine day it's part of everything. So, I know quite a few organizations where anything that they do, this is an automatic part of the process. They will not get sign off for a new initiative unless there's BCM in place, as simple as that. And management itself is so focused on it that they're going to ask, well, what about the BCM part? What happens if this breaks down? What do you do then? I see Suzanne on the line, and from Suzanne's point of view, again, she's a BCM head in a large government organization, and she's had a great focus on the outsourcing capability. So let's say the organization can deliver, but what's your comfort level that your service providers can deliver? So how embedded is BCM in those service providers? Again, an important part. And when there are organizations who ask all of these questions at a management level, or even the operationally, those answers are ready and that thought process is there, then you can be fairly confident that things will work. Whatever happens, we have good overall understanding. And if some key people are not there, the others rise to the occasion. They all know what they're doing, and things are not going to stop. And that's truly when we would say kind of BCM is all pervasive and embedded in the organization. So good critical step, importantly. Once you've done, now a key thing about embedding is it actually doesn't stop in this stage itself. You may typically provide training and awareness as and when necessary. Now, what I mean by that is before the BI or the risk assessment could be when you provide the training on BI&RA. Before plans or testing exercising could be when you do your refresher for plans or testing and exercising. Before the audit could be when you do your training for BCM auditing or management review, or maybe just the full cycle itself, that our annual review is coming up. Sometimes organizations time the training and awareness with their annual certification. So there are organizations which are 2 to 3 rounds certified, and that's when they say about a month or so before that is when they do their training and awareness, because they know that the certification body will be coming in asking questions. As I said, they may not restrict themselves to the core BCM team, go to others and just ask them, what's your understanding, what do you do, how do you do it, show me how you do it, explain to me, and let me be comfortable that you know what you're doing. So it's in your safe hands. So those organizations may time their training and awareness sessions just before the certification or the annual review. So take that decision as to what is the right timing. If it comes to outsourced providers, then maybe dovetail it with their cycle. So understand their cycle, what they do, and how would you ensure that, how would you give yourself the comfort that they are embedded. So just as someone may come and certify you or assess you, similarly, you may want to go out to your service providers and to take a look at their processes and convince yourself that they are embedded. So in their organization, if the key person is not there or something else breaks down, what is your comfort level that the others can manage easily? They understand it. They know what to do. They've been doing it in the past. And even in a real situation, those processes will kick in, and then you can be relaxed that if something goes wrong, they have good business continuity and they're not going to let me down. So critically look at embedding, not just for your organization and for others. Again, I'll pause for a moment, just a small introduction into the next module, and then actually we can break. So I'll see if there are any questions. So good comment from you, Suzanne. Important to make sure that the coordinators are on board. And as I said earlier, I would see the coordinators as the BCM leads for the units. So they are literally, I'd say, standalone mini BCM heads, if I can call it that. The BCM for their department is in their safe hands. So important that they understand, fully support, at least understand the activities that they need to perform. So they take the framework documents and follow them within their organization and their entities. And that's really important. That's something that they need to do and take things forward. Okay. So with that, it's about 9 minutes left. I'm going to stop here. Uh, just bring in place some other slides. So I think coming up is a slide on perhaps some of our upcoming sessions. I'm asking my team to bring up that slide now. Question from Najma. Just give me a sec, Najma. So the committee, um, technically, Najma, I mean, I would say a BCM committee is a name. It could be a bunch of people that are already doing other things. But importantly, they are focused on BCM. Let's say when that committee meets, the agenda is BCM. It could be the same bunch of people discussing many other things also. The agenda changes, so the people may be the same. This may be a meeting to decide upgradation of automation, and the next meeting is to decide the BCM program. So in that sense, the name may change, but importantly, it's people who are focused on business continuity and all are almost providing the sign off and validation of what's been done so far. So that's the role of a BCM team. Um, Two heads are better than one. It could be one person only. It's nothing says that it has to be a committee or multiple people together. But if you left out some people out of that, then you may get pushback. And if you passed a decision, that person may say, "No, I wasn't there. I don't understand. So I'm not okay with it." So you may end up actually having to do things again. Therefore, just to make things smooth and ensure transparent communication and ensure enough respect to everyone, it may be a good idea to have them all in the committee. Um, if they weren't there, then really they were invited. They couldn't come, then that's their problem. They can't really complain too much. But it's good to get buy-in, and it makes sure that everyone's on the same page. So even in a small organization, I'd say the leadership team together would be a good team that actually keeps looking at the BCM process and kind of signing off and validating. And therefore, you won't have too much back and forth or rework. You've got their okay and you move to the next stage. Whereas if some people were not involved, then you may have to keep stopping while they come up to speed and they make up their mind, and then only can the program move forward. So it may be a good idea to have all of them in a committee, even if it's a short meeting. It could be just an awareness and update meeting, but okay, we updated you and we got your blessings and we move forward. So that's it. So that way your program progresses faster. That could be my suggestion. Your next point about certification, no, I won't say that you can't BCM. I mean, certification is proof of competence. It's not that if you're not certified, you're not competent. It could be that, I mean, what stops you from self-studying in school or college and passing the exam, or not even taking the exam? So if you didn't take your exam for the year, does it mean that you don't have the knowledge? No, it doesn't. But the exam kind of validates that you have the knowledge. And if you haven't taken the exam, you may not, it can't be concluded that you have the knowledge. So there could be a bit of an open issue there. So with certification, I would say you close that discussion, and no one can, in some ways, question your competence because you passed the certification exam. So it's I would say a safer thing to do, but it can't be said that without certification you don't have the knowledge. That would be an unfair thing to say. A point from Mohammed. Yes, Mohammed Abdulaziz, we will provide the slides, not an issue. And thanks, Mohammed, for your comment. A question from Jakes. Do you need ITDR for BCM certification? I would say, Jakes, yes, because the certification body has to put their judgment about your capability as an organization to restart the operations. Now, there would be very few industries where IT can be down and still things could be okay. And I can only think of maybe cottage industries, someone handicrafts, for example, someone making handicrafts by their hands. Now, perhaps if IT is down, that process need not stop. Even then, you can say the procurement of the raw materials is kind of automated, or it's SAP or something like that. Or maybe the designs are automated and available. If the system is down, people don't have the designs, so they can't proceed. But other than that, if you looked at a traditional cottage industry, someone making camels out of sand, or someone stitching cloth and making a cushion cover or things like that, possibly those are industries where you don't need IT disaster recovery. So even without that, you can demonstrate resilience. But I can't think of too many others. So in most industries, if IT was down, your process would be down, or there would be lack of clarity of what to do, and the resumption would not be smooth. The resumption may not be timely. So I would say, as a general rule, if I were to put a default option, yes, you would need to demonstrate strong IT resilience in order to be BCM certified, because IT is a critical component of almost everything now. I'm saying almost. And without a strong IT resilience and restart, often things may stop. So usually, yes, I would say it is required. Okay. And quick point to Najma, and I think I build on your point, Suzanne, about training to the committee. And there could be two things in our experience. Management, by and large, are, I'd say, short of time. They are usually quite smart. That's why they're in management. So you don't need to kind of reinforce, you don't need to overdo it. They pick up things quickly by and large. They are smart, experienced people. So their time is important. So often a simulation exercise may be useful, of pretending that something has happened, going through the consequences, learning from those consequences. And simulations, largely, in my experience, also bring some great ideas and immediate solutions during that exercise. If you pretend that this has gone wrong, then automatically someone will say, what about this? And what about that? And let's do this and let's do that. And someone will say, no, this is the problem. This is why we can't do it. And often in that session, you'll come to a solution. Why don't we do this? Okay, let's do this. So I typically, if to train management teams, one could be theory, very short session of taking them through the theory, say half an hour, and then practicing that theory via a simulated situation, say about 1.5, 2 hours duration, total session, not too long, somewhere between 2 to 3 hours. I think that's the maximum time that managements would typically give you. That may be an interesting way to do things. And two approaches. I found it very useful to do something very different. So I had a water and power company, and I did a simulation exercise for them, nothing to do with water and power, simply because it opens up the mind. They think water and power, they simulate. I mean, they're good at that stuff. They know this. So that event may not add too much value because again, they've got some experience, some understanding. What about something totally different? Earthquake, terrorist attack, something like that, where literally they've spent no mindset at all. That may actually challenge them and come up with something totally different, absolutely out of the box. So they love that exercise, and that was my learning, that you can actually get management teams to learn with something very relevant, or even learn with something totally irrelevant. If they are open minded, Suzanne, as you said, if they are willing, they have the knowledge to learn, both of them can add value. Okay, so with that, we've actually touched our 2 hours. I'm going to take one last look at the comments. You have on the screen some of our upcoming sessions. So if you need structured knowledge, if you need something more detailed, if you need a certification, if you need more comprehensive course material, feel free to write to our team to attend one of the formal sessions. Be it auditing, business continuity, IT disaster recovery, we've got a lovely program, great instructor. Risk, we've got a very interesting case study. Business continuity, of course, is the forte. And other than that, if this is adequate, that's I'm happy with that. We are not asking you to attend something that you don't need. Attend it only if you need it. And that's it. Let's keep in touch, and I will be back with you about 2 weeks from now. So thanks very much. Take care, everyone. And with that, I'm going to wind up the session. Take care. Have a good day. Bye bye.